All right, so I want to welcome back up to the stage. Please, open hearts, thunderous applause. Welcome back. You know him, you love him. Please, Dave Murray.
Appreciate that. Okay, question. I want you to think about it for a minute, and I want you to be honest. I'm looking for an honest assessment. Okay? Who in here has an internal culture in your organization right now that you feel is exactly where you want it to be? Raise your hand. Oh, a couple, all right. That's great. That's great news. Wasn't a lot, though. If I asked you to think about your organization and you gave it some thought, would you say, by a show of hands, internal culture for us, it's a priority, it's a focus, we're just not where we want to be? Who's in that category? Okay, that's kind of the answer I expect in this room of professionals focused on the experience they're providing, both internally and externally. Again, I asked you to be honest. What if I asked the question, internal culture really isn't a focus of ours? It just kind of happens. Anyone in that boat right now? I saw a couple hands. I saw a couple, maybe, yeah. That's the reality out there, right? For most organizations, we either know it's important and we try and focus on it, but it's not where we want it to be, or we're really not focusing on it at all, and it just sort of happens, right? I always like to say that your culture is going to be created. It really just depends on whether you put some work into it or don't, right? Is it the culture you want it to be, or is the culture that's going to happen to you? So I'm super excited. We talked about it yesterday. I'm so excited about the book. I wanted to thank John again for taking me along on this journey and mentoring me through this process. I do have to tell you, though, this is book number 6 for John. John is a machine, right? So it was in the springtime. John called me up. Said, hey, I'm going down to the Smoky Mountains for a week. I'm taking kind of like a writing retreat. You're welcome to come if you want to, spend a week on the book. I checked my calendar. I was so bummed. I'm like, oh, I can't. I already have a trip here, and I got to do something here. I can't make it, but thank you for the invite. So John goes down to the Smoky Mountains for a week. We talked that following Monday. He comes back. He says, my half's done. And I was like, my half is not done. My half isn't even started yet. Right? It's a long process, but it's so enlightening. I mentioned this yesterday. I feel like we already had a really good grasp on creating a great internal culture, but we learned so much more. And there's so many more statistics out there that help us do just that. So John shared this yesterday. This is the current table of contents of the draft form of the book. What I'm going to talk about today in the 30, 25 minutes or so time that I have with you, I'm going to focus on chapter 6, chapter 7, and chapter 8. Chapter 6 is all about creating an employee experience that's going to keep them there. Especially if you saw Cal's session yesterday when he talked about Generation Z, the Zoomers, and millennials, and the fact that they don't stay at jobs as often. How can we keep them a little longer? Because we know keeping them just a little longer is an investment in the organization, right? It saves us dollars. Chapter 7 is all about tearing down those silos, right? A lot of times, the issues we have with our external experience comes back to problems we're having with our internal culture. Poor handoffs. Departments not playing well together. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. I'm going to start with chapter 8 when we talk about building and developing great leaders. Right? Leaders just don't happen. Right? So here's an example that I want to share. In most organizations, people get promoted into a managerial, some sort of leadership position because they've done their job well. They've been productive, right? You're the best salesperson, etc. And there typically is no manual of, hey, here at XYZ Corp, here's how we lead. Here's what we want you to do. Here's the experience we want you to provide for your teams internally. That usually does not exist. And we hope it happens. We want it to happen. But we have no guardrails in place to help us get there. So what does that mean? Right? Well, Donnie becomes a manager because he's our best salesperson. We want to retain him. We can't lose Donnie. Right? So let's give him a manager job. Let's give him a team. and hope it all rubs off on his team because he's so great, right? Or maybe Mary just got her MBA and we know we need to keep her, right? People are going to be coming after her because she's great and now she's got that degree. Or maybe it's just because Michael's been here for 10 years and he's earned it, right? He's put the time in, he's loyal. Let's give him a managerial position. That's what usually happens, and we don't ask the question, well, do they want to coach? Do they understand how to be supportive? Do they understand how important they are into the growth of their team members? That usually doesn't factor into the equation, right? It's really just based on production. So I do have some good news. One of the things that we learned is one trend has come to an end. Back about 15 years ago, there was a trend happening across North American businesses where perks, the thought was perks equal culture, right? If we give free lunches on Wednesday and we put some ping pong tables in, man, they're going to love us and they're going to stick around. Here's the thing, perks aren't bad, perks are great, but you can't buy your way to a culture. Right? You can't just give stuff away and hope that that creates your culture. It really has to come organically. And one of the main places it starts is found in this quote. The single most important determinant of an individual, so one of your team members, of an individual's performance and their commitment to stay. Right? So if you break this down, what they're looking at is how well are they going to do in their jobs and how long are they going to stick around. The single most important determinant is, I'll give you a hint, I have a hint. John shared this statistic yesterday, right, which is pretty amazing when you talk about the correlation of overall happiness, that relationship I have with management, 86%. So if we go back to this quote, the single most important determinant is the relationship that I have with my immediate manager. But think about that for a minute. Are our leaders or our managers focused on that? Do our managers even know that this is important? This could be a strategy in a lot of organizations, right? Build that relationship. Be there for them. Are we telling our managers that? In most cases, no. Again, we hope they have it in them. We hope they do it. Doesn't mean that they're going to. Here's another reason why we want to focus on this. So we already have evidence about focusing on the internal culture is going to help increase your team's tenure, increase their overall morale. But man, productivity comes into play too. Here's a brand new statistic. This isn't even in the book yet. I just found this about a week and a half ago. John and I talked about we still have to get this in the book, right? Complaining about my boss. Who here complains about their boss? Some people are like, yes, I do. So here's some new data that just came out. Most people, the majority of employees, complain about their boss 10 plus hours a month. But wait, there's more. A third of those people spend 20 plus hours a month complaining about their boss. Here's the thing, that is just complaining about their boss. That doesn't take into account all the other people they complain about. That doesn't take into account, I'm complaining about my peers. And Bob's such a jerk, right? It's just complaining about my boss. We're talking almost 3 days a month that some of your people are just complaining about their boss. That's a lot of time. So if we take a look at this, why do people complain? Anyone know why we complain as human beings? It's kind of a natural tendency. Anyone know why we complain? There's some simple reasons. We complain because it's easy. It provides us comfort, connection, and support. We're really looking for consensus. Right? We're really saying to ourselves, I'm not the only one that feels this way, right? Everyone else thinks Bob's a jerk too, right? It's not just me. Right? So we're looking for that consensus. We're kind of looking for that sense of community, and we do so in complaining. So interestingly enough, if you think about it, organizations, if they're focused, if they're looking the right way, organizations can do the same thing. Good leadership, strong managers can also provide a strong sense of engagement, comfort, connection, and support. But it's usually not a focus, right? We're usually very production driven. What are the numbers? How are sales? How are back orders? What's our average answer speed? Right? It's usually all these other things that we're focused on as opposed to providing that zone. Right? So leaders, when they're focused, can do this. But again, for most, it's not a priority. So about 3 weeks ago, I was down in the Dallas area working with the great folks at Texas 811. You probably have all seen this logo, maybe not the Texas one, but your state's version. Right? They're the call before you dig people. Scott and Keeter are here. Scott, Keeter, where are you? Oh, there you guys are. So I was down there 3 weeks ago specifically working on world-class internal culture with them, and something pretty interesting happened that came up about their current culture, and they have a really good culture. But there's always room for improvement, right? There's always room for more standards. But something very interesting came up in this workshop. Their chief people officer, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but their chief people officer raised her hand and said this. She said, "Too many of us see our value as doers," because that's how they came up in the organization, right? I grew because I was a great doer. I grew because I got accolades and people saw how much of a great doer I was. And not enough on the leadership, right? That mindset has to change. When you transition from doer to leader, you need to focus on leading. But a lot of us kind of fall back into our comfort zone of, I'm just going to keep doing what I do because I'm good at it. Occasionally people say, hey, nice job. So I'm just going to keep doing this. Right? So think about this in your world. Do you sometimes have leaders that are too focused on doing as opposed to leading their teams? It happens a lot. Another thing that happens quite often, especially to leaders, is this idea of busyness, right? Busyness has become such a big deal in our working worlds. Harvard Business Review last spring wrote an article on it, which was pretty interesting. I can sum it up for you pretty quickly. Basically, the takeaway from this article was that we as employees, as workers, as individuals, we wear busyness as a badge of honor. Right? Look how busy I am. No time for you, I'm busy. Can't do that, I'm busy. Right? The busier we are, the more valuable we feel. Right? And so, as we become leaders, that busyness takes us away from some of those important things that we should be doing. Right? If we're not careful, we look at those things, those tasks, and sometimes we think we're really moving the needle, we're doing great, but all we're doing is just checking things off the list. Andy Bailey has a great quote that I love when Andy says, "Stop confusing activity with achievement." Right? But we do that so often. I checked so many things off my list today. I didn't really accomplish all that much, but I got a lot of check marks. That happens very, very often. So stop confusing activity with achievement. Here's another stat for you, another very recent stat. This is about 2 weeks old from this study. Let me ask you, how good are your managers right now? So you bring someone new in, they get promoted from the ranks, or they maybe come in from another organization, and they're overseeing a team. How good are they? Are they effective? We'd like to hope so, right? We think so. We want to hire good people and let them do their thing. But here's the reality out there. In this recent study, 3 out of 4 workers claimed that their manager was ineffective. 3 out of 4 saying their manager was ineffective. I could do that job better. They get in my way. They bog me down with things that stop me from doing my core value, whatever that is. Right? So 3 out of 4 are saying managers are ineffective. So here's the thing. How do we drive engagement? And one of the things that really came out of this particular study is the fact that businesses need to look at this issue with more urgency. This has got to be a top line item. This has got to be higher on the priority list of building that leadership so they are then building that internal culture. Right? So how do they do that? So there's a couple of great strategies to use to do just that. And some of you may already have them in place. One of them is one-on-one meetings, making sure that you're doing them regularly. How many people in here do one-on-one meetings regular basis? I knew we'd get a large number in this room that do that because you see the value of it. Okay? Leadership one-on-ones are so important. And if you don't have these in place already, it's a great place to start. If you do have them in place, you might want to do a little audit. How well are they working? Because here's the thing. One-on-one meetings are super effective in driving engagement and building internal loyalty if they're done well. If they're not done well, they actually can do the opposite. And here's one example. So in this study, they found that 94% of managers that were surveyed claim to schedule one-on-one meetings with their teams. That's great news, right? Waiting for the other shoe to drop? Well, here's the other shoe. 72% of those meetings either get rescheduled or canceled altogether. Right? So what are we left with? A handful of these meetings taking place. That's the reality. I love this quote from Joey Coleman, author and speaker Joey Coleman, when he said, "The harsh reality is most employers value the relationships with prospects and customers much more than they value those relationships with their employees." Right? Now, of course, those customer meetings, those last-minute calls, those fires that we have to put out are super important. But very often they come at the expense of our internal team. And we kind of kick that can down the road. Oh, we'll do it next month. Oh, we'll do it next quarter. Right? Next thing you know, they fall off the radar. So if you are currently doing one-on-ones or you want to start doing one-on-ones, a couple of tips that I want to give you to be thinking about as you roll this out or do that audit. First of all, you have to give your managers the time to do this. You can't just say, hey, I went to this conference last week in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. And while I was there, some guy got on stage and said we should do one-on-ones. So next week, let's do one-on-ones. Okay, everybody? All right, great. Break. Let's go. What do you think is going to happen? Right? People are going to be like, where the heck do I do this? When do I fit this in? Right? So we have to give them the time. We have to make sure they understand that it is a priority for them, that it does need to be a focus of theirs, that it's not a nice to have, that it's a must have. Because what happens right now with those 72% of one-on-one meetings getting canceled is because it's not high enough on the priority of those managers, right? It's a little further down the rung, and of the things that I can cancel, there's one right there. That frees up my whole morning if I cancel these 4. That's what happens. The other thing is we have to make sure they have permission to do it, that they know it's important. Yes, do this. We know you have some other things going on. There's some other tasks, other things you have to do. This is important. Do this, right? It really needs to be an organizational initiative. And then we have to give them the accountability. We have to make sure they know that it's part of their jobs, that it's an expectation. Again, it's not a nice to have. And if you're going to go down this path, another really nice thing to give your team members is a template. Because again, if we go out and say, hey, go conduct some one-on-ones, and you ask 30 managers on your team to start conducting one-on-ones, what do you think you're going to get? 30 different versions of that, right? And some are just going to be very task-focused and say, you got to start doing this better. That's not really effective, right? Some might do it well, just kind of innately, but not everybody. We have to show them what it looks like. So we work with ATI Physical Therapy. They came up with this guide. They wanted to make sure that all their leaders were spending 5 minutes on that informal catch-up first. How are things going? What's new in your world? I haven't seen you because you've been on the road. Tell me what's new, whatever that looked like. The next 10 minutes were the employees' 10 minutes. What did you want to bring to the table? What are you working on? Where are you having problems? The following 10 minutes were then the leaders' comments. Here's what I see. Here's what I'd like you to work on. Let's listen to this call, whatever that is. And then maybe the most important part up here, that action planning. What are we working on to the next meeting? What are we going to do to continually improve together? Right? But here's the thing. If we don't have that, think about your organization. If you don't have a tool like this in place, how many of your one-on-ones would just be the employee walking in and the manager telling them everything they're doing that is currently wrong? Show of hands. saw him back there. I saw you, John. You were just stretching, though. Yeah, that's the reality. Alpenhaus. Where's Alpenhaus? They're here. A lot of them. Right? They have a great tool as well, making sure that we're focusing personal and professional. I'll get to the importance of personal in just a moment. Again, remember, we're trying to build those relationships because it's so important. But a lot of times our leaders aren't thinking that way unless we're really giving them that direction. So the number one thing was recurring one-on-one meetings. The second thing is celebrate and recognize. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to help our leaders build this as a habit. Right? It needs to be a focus. It needs to become part of their routine, their day-to-day. 63% of employees that are recognized regularly say they're not going to leave their organization. They're not looking for a new job. They're happy where they are. But we need to make it easy for our team members, our leaders, whether it's a caught you doing something right card they can easily fill out. Right? How can we systematize it for our leaders so it's easy for them to do? We're not looking to create more burdens. It's an important part of their job, but we want them to be able to do it fairly easily. Key Bank is right here. Where's Key? Let's hear it, Key. Key created part of their process, their journey. They created an internal online community for peer recognition and other recognition. So maybe that's something you want to think about. What works in your culture? We share a lot of best practices, but it's not one size fits all. What's going to fit best in your culture to help your leaders focus and make this a positive habit going forward? So celebrate and recognize. Number 3, be a supportive coach. If we were to do a poll, just an informal poll of your managers back at your office, and we asked them, hey, how important in your role is it to be there to support your teams? Just be there for your teams. How many you think would say, yeah, that's exactly what I do? Couple? Great, I love to see that, but not everybody. Right? A lot of times managers see themselves as task drivers, not supportive. I love this video I'm going to share from Simon Sinek. It's a pretty amazing story. Some of you may have seen this before. I love the story. Let's watch, but I want you to be thinking about your organization as Simon is talking about these 2 organizations.
Customer. I'll tell you a true story. A few months ago, I stayed at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas. It is a wonderful hotel. And the reason it's a wonderful hotel is not because of the fancy beds. Any hotel can go and buy a fancy bed. The reason it's a wonderful hotel is because of the people who work there. If you walk past somebody at the Four Seasons and they say hello to you, you get the feeling that they actually wanted to say hello to you. It's not that somebody told them that you have to say hello to all the customers, say hello to all the guests, right? You actually feel that they care. Now, in their lobby, they have a coffee stand. And one afternoon, I went to buy a cup of coffee, and there was a barista by the name of Noah who was serving me. Noah was fantastic. He was friendly and fun, and he was engaging with me, and I had so much fun buying a cup of coffee, I actually think I gave 100% tip, right? He was wonderful. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? And without skipping a beat, Noah says, I love my job. And so I followed up. I said, what is it that the Four Seasons is doing that would make you say to me, I love my job? And without skipping a beat, Noah said, throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, if there's anything that I need to do my job better. He said, not just my manager, any manager. And then he said something magical. He says, I also work at Caesar's Palace. And at Caesar's Palace, the managers are trying to make sure we're doing everything right. They catch us when we do things wrong. He says, when I go to work there, I like to keep my head under the radar and just get through the day so I can get my paycheck. He says, here at the Four Seasons, I feel I can be myself. Same person, entirely a different experience from the customer who will engage with Noah. So we in leadership are always criticizing the people. We're always saying, we've got to get the right people on the bus. I've got to fill my team. I've got to get the right people. But the reality is, it's not the people. It's the leadership. If we create the right environment, we will get people like Noah at the Four Seasons. If we create the wrong environment, we will get people like Noah at Caesar's palace. It's not the people. And yet we're so quick to hire and fire. You can't hire and fire your children. If your kids are struggling, we don't say, you got to see at school, you're up for adoption.
So pretty interesting, right? Here we have Noah in these two cultures, and he behaves differently. So ask yourself, think back to your office, wherever that may be, whether you're in person, whether you're hybrid, whether you're virtual. Think about it. Do you have managers that are out there actively supporting your team members? Or are they actively out there looking for things that are going wrong? Are they actively out there looking to bust people for making those mistakes? Last thing on creating more effective managers is map out a career path. Right? Help them know where they want to go. And I bring this back to Ford. Right? You all know Ford, our acronym, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, and how important this is when we're building those external experiences. But man, Ford is also really important on those internal experiences, and very often overlooked. And when it comes to building that career map for your people, I ask you this: occupation. Obviously, you know what their job is right now. They're on your team. Do you know where they want to go? Do you know what they want to do next? And are you helping them get there? Right? So those are 4 things that your leaders can start doing to be more effective and building the internal culture that we'd all love to have because of all the amazing benefits that come with that. We talk a little bit about internal culture as well, and one thing I want to touch on with internal culture that usually gets in the way, internal handoffs. Right? It doesn't matter if you have a sales and service environment. If you have handoffs between team members, there are probably some issues. And they're probably felt by your customers. Image First is here. Where's Image First? There they are. So Jay Jeffrey, who's here, who's their executive vice president, and are you chief people officer now? You're chief of staff? Chief of staff. Jay and I remember this vividly. We were in the basement of a casino in Pennsylvania, which was our workshop space for that day. And we were starting talking about the big picture and what we're going to be working on and some of the things we want to work on. And we were talking about what are we going to do as far as building their customer experience. And Jay kept coming back to, man, we have a lot of problems between sales and service. And so we actually created a workshop where we spent a lot of time just focusing on how do sales and service work together? Where do we drop the ball? What are those things that cause those problems? So we could build awareness. So we don't just fall in that trap of not training our folks on how to avoid these warning signs and falling into that same hole in front of our customer every single time. Right? So those conversations we had, Jay, back in 2015, 2016, really led to what we built as internal culture today, the workshops that we do today. Right? But think about the internal handoffs and those problems that you have in your world, because they can exist everywhere. I was out in Las Vegas recently working with Intermountain Health. They had an issue where they have all these clinics, medical clinics, and they have a support center, and the fact was the teams just didn't know each other, right? It's real easy to throw someone under the bus if you don't know them, right, even if they're on the same team, right? In their case, we were able to get them together and meet and start to build internal relationships, and that helps solve the problem. Not everyone can do that, right? But is there team building that we can do, even if you are across large geographic regions? Unishippers is here. John's here. They have an issue with sales and support where what happens is the salespeople find the best support person they can in the support office, and that becomes their go-to. Right? I just go to John because John gets the job done. Well, what happens? A few months later, John's like, this place is awful. I get texts in the middle of the night. Everyone comes to me. I'm out of here. I'm actually thinking, John, since you're here today, your phone's probably blowing up. Right? What's happening back in Albany? Yeah, you're getting calls right now, I'm sure. Right? And then you look at someone like KeyBank. Right? KeyBank is in 16 states on the retail side of things, 30 states if you count their commercial and some of their other business offices. And they have support centers primarily in Buffalo, but other places, other parts of the country as well. They're huge. Right? How do you navigate that? How do you navigate a handoff in an organization that's so big? Right? So those are the things that we need to be focusing on. Where are your handoffs? Where are those things that can and do go wrong? Speaking of KeyBank, every year at the Customer Service Revolution, we have what we refer to as a brand executive, right? A leader from an organization who's actually focused on this, who's actually doing this, has this initiative going on in their world, their customer focus. And I'm so excited. Today we have Kevin Sloan from KeyBank. For those of you that don't know, I mean, not everyone is from Cleveland. You don't all have KeyBank in your region, perhaps. KeyBank is pretty big around these parts. So if you look at this picture, see that circle? That's kind of where we are. We're under that grass patch in this room here. If you just go outside, and maybe some of you didn't look up, but if you go outside, there's KeyBank, right? So they're a big part of our local economy, a big part of our region. So I'm thrilled that we had the opportunity to work with them as a client, and we have been for over a year. So Kevin Sloan is going to come up and share some of the things that they have done as an organization, some of their best practices. I'm super excited to bring him up. Kevin is the Executive Vice President of the Branch Network. So that's like 6,000 team members, give or take, that report up through him. He's also on the Key Executive Council. And he is here today to share some of the magic that they have made at KeyBank. I haven't told you this yet, but I am also a customer since 1996. Yeah, thank you. I always say that because Key claps for me. It's kind of fun. All right, Kevin Sloan, come on out.
So earlier this year, a young woman stormed into one of our KeyBank branches in Washington State. She had a distraught look on her face and she was visibly shaking. Well, Brenda, one of our KeyBank bankers, met her at the door. See, Brenda was on her way out to lunch. But noticing this woman's condition, she stopped and asked how she could help. In a very embarrassed tone, the woman replied that she felt that she just fell victim to a phone scam. So Brenda changed her lunch plans and walked her back calmly to her office. She asked her to share exactly what happened that morning. So this woman opened up and was very emotional as she described that a couple hours earlier she received a phone call. The caller identified himself as being from PayPal with news that her account had been locked and that it risked being permanently suspended unless she was able to make an immediate payment. So this woman actually had a PayPal account, and she feared losing access. So she did exactly what this caller instructed. She got in her car. She didn't hang up the phone call. She went to the local grocery store and purchased $2,300 worth of gift cards to Nordstrom in $100 and $500 increments. The caller then asked her to read off the serial numbers from each of those cards. And upon reading the last digit from the last card, the caller abruptly hung up. That's when she knew that she had been scammed. She didn't know where to turn, so she went to KeyBank. She happens to be a client of ours. Well, that's when Brenda sprung into action. She immediately looked up Nordstrom.com, keyed in those gift cards, only to find that all of the balances had been depleted down to just $1 or $2 remaining. Just a few hours earlier, this woman shared those numbers. So she called Nordstrom customer service. She quickly got the customer service rep up to speed, and together they brainstormed on what they could do to help this lady. Thankfully, the gentleman was able to confirm that the merchandise that was used or that was purchased using the gift cards had not yet been shipped. Therefore, he was able to cancel the purchases and confirm to us that this client would receive her money eventually. Upon hearing this, our client exhaled a huge sigh of relief. She got up from the desk, walked around to Brenda, gave her a big hug, and called her a miracle maker. Now, while you're all feeling great about KeyBank and how Brenda sprung into action and saved the day for that particular woman, I'd like to share another story. This one happened here in the suburbs of Cleveland. I happened to be visiting this branch one afternoon, and as I was approaching the front door, I saw an elderly man walking out. He was frustrated, extremely frustrated. I could just tell by the look on his face, shaking his head as he's walking out. Well, of course, I had to stop and introduce myself and ask what was going on, how I could help. Right there, he shared with me that a couple weeks earlier, his only son suddenly and unexpectedly passed away. And settling his son's estate now fell to his father. So that morning, he started by calling our contact center, explaining the situation and asking what he needs to do. Our contact center agent told him exactly what documents he would need and instructed him to visit his neighborhood KeyBank branch. So that's exactly what he did. He gathered the right documents, drove to the branch, and our teammates there, unfortunately, shared with him that they're not able to assist him. They instructed him to the branch where his son opened his accounts, which happened to be on the other side of town, a good 30-minute drive away. But this father, determined to settle this account, got in his car and drove to the other branch. That's where I happened to meet him. He was frustrated because our team there also told him that they weren't able to assist him. Their suggestion was, wait for it, to call the contact center. And you could see the virtuous cycle. Fortunately, I was able to walk him back in, get a couple subject matter experts on the phone, and we were able to resolve it for him. The good news is we have since learned from that experience and simplified our procedures for both our contact center agents as well as our branch teammates. Now, I share those stories to illustrate a point. KeyBank has a long history of excellent client experience. Client centricity is deeply woven into the fabric of our organization. But a couple years ago, a group of us were taking a look at our CX scores, and we saw an opportunity to improve. And as we were examining the scores, something popped out. We realized that we have an enemy living among us. That enemy was inconsistency. So we set out to build a plan to attack this enemy of inconsistency. See, while our top line scores were great, from market to market, variability, inconsistency. From branch to branch, inconsistency. From banker to banker, we heard yesterday employee roulette. That was alive and well at Key. And even within the same employee, depending on which client they were interacting with, there was inconsistency. Early in the morning, they're all fueled up with coffee, or their favorite client comes in, one experience. Short-staffed, middle of the day, on a Friday, another experience. Inconsistency. So we named inconsistency our enemy and sought out to eliminate it in our business. On behalf of the KeyBank team that's here today, it's my pleasure to share with you a little bit about our journey so far on our experience revolution. For those of you not familiar with KeyBank, in just 2 years, we're going to celebrate 200 years of helping clients and communities thrive. That's our purpose, helping clients and communities thrive. We help individuals and businesses on a wide spectrum. We help individuals open their first account all the way to providing sophisticated financial planning. We help small businesses fuel the next level of their growth, all the way to providing advice and financing to Fortune 100 companies. We do this through a branch network that spans 15 states, just under 1,000 locations, as well as our contact center and, of course, our digital capabilities. Now, before you and before us started any experience revolution, it's important to understand the unique challenges in your business. And for us in banking, we found 3. We needed to understand these and figure out how they're going to be incorporated into our experience revolution. The first is that we deal with an emotional topic. I don't need to tell anybody here that money can be a very emotional topic, right? We help clients in some of their happiest days, helping them finance their first car, or getting keys to a new home, or letting them retire in the lifestyle and the timeline that they envision. But we also help clients on some of their darkest days, like the two examples I shared, fraud and death, or helping a young couple figure out how to stretch their income to meet their obligations while still being able to be on a path to achieve their financial dreams. The second challenge that we face is that we operate in a highly regulated industry. I know there's some other bankers in the room. You can all agree that we are constantly being tested, as all banks are, for safety and soundness on a wide variety of measures. And seemingly every year there's a new series of laws coming out that require our utmost attention. As a result, bank employees are deeply trained in risk management, which is a good thing. However, when you're dealing with client experience, it can create a vision of the world that is very black and white, very yes or no. I can remember over 30 years ago going through teller training, and I still can remember, I walked out of that teller training understanding the actions that would get me fired more so than I learned anything about client experience. That's just the reality of the banking industry. The third challenge that we have is that we do not see our clients on a regular basis. In fact, year after year, our clients are coming in and visiting us or calling us in the contact center less and less. Thanks to the proliferation of digital capabilities, we are not able to connect with our clients as frequently as other businesses, which makes the fact that every interaction that we have absolutely precious, that we deliver a positive experience. Now, understanding those three challenges, we were determined to say, we can fight this enemy of inconsistency. We can absolutely do it. But the group that assembled, we agreed that we didn't want to just set our sights on being the best bank for client experience. We wanted to aspire for something higher. We wanted to be among the best retailers for client experience. See, when a client leaves our branch, they don't just go across the street to our competition. No, they go about their day. They go to the grocery store or pick up their prescription or drop off their dry cleaning, or maybe they go home and purchase something online. Those are our competitors. So we needed to help our teammates understand that that is the competitive landscape that we're dealing with. We also needed to figure out some sort of framework to allow our teammates to understand that yes, we do operate in a highly regulated business, but there is plenty of gray space in this black and white world. And we wanted to give them the flexibility and empower them with the tools and resources to be able to say, what is possible in this moment? Now, I will tell you that as we sought out, we had a very quick discovery. And that was that we can't just focus on our client-facing teammates. We needed to make sure that we're addressing the teammate-to-teammate experience, what Dave just covered, right? The employee revolution. If we are asking our client-facing teammates, we're asking them to hold them to a higher standard, and yet the support that they're receiving from their internal partners was on a different standard, then we knew that we weren't going to be successful. And this enemy was still going to live within our business. So we were looking for something that would work both for employees and for our clients. Now that we had our scope defined, we met with several client experience vendors and ultimately, of course, chose the DiJulius group. We love the fact of their employee roster, or their client roster, the who's who of client experience companies, and we saw that their framework would be very appropriate and very practical in our business and scalable across our entire organization. So then we worked with John and Dave and Jess and others, and we did a series of discovery meetings and really fine-tuned the scope of what we were after. And when we went to select the individuals that were going to participate in our workshop, there's some lessons that we learned that I would like to share with those of you who have not yet started your experience revolution. First is that you want to make sure that you surround yourself with lots of different perspectives, right? Not just the veterans of your company, the people who have been there for decades. Surround yourself also with, get some people that are brand new to your organization. Maybe join from another client experience company. We also wanted people that were at various positions, client-facing, support, different levels of leadership. We also were looking for individuals who had credibility among their peer group. Because when you pivot from ideation to implementation, these workshop participants are going to become your early advocates and ambassadors. So you want to make sure that they have the credibility and respect of their peers. And then this one is an important one. John and I were just chatting about this morning. You need to make sure you have individuals that are comfortable engaging in healthy debate. You don't want individuals that are just going to defer to the loudest voice in the room or to the senior-most person in the room. There was a lot of lively discussions in our ideation session. So, at workshop, we brought everybody together. John facilitated it for us. And over the course of a few days, we walked out of there with our experience action statement. Make every moment matter. Those of you who have an experience action statement know the painstaking work that goes into making sure that every word is carefully curated and, again, is a byproduct of a lot of discussion and debate. Make every moment matter for us. If you think about those words, make every moment matter. The onus is on the individual teammate, right? Doesn't depend on the mood of the client or what's going on in the office. It's up to me to make every moment matter. And it's not make the moments matter when all the circumstances are correct. No, it's every moment matter. Again, remember, we're not seeing our clients very often. We're not talking to our clients very often. They're interacting with us through digital channels and our ATMs, but our face-to-face interactions are very infrequent. So it's so important that, again, we rise to the occasion no matter what the circumstances, not try to multitask, but be there present with every client in every interaction and every teammate. So what I'd like to show you now is our day in the life video. Yesterday we saw a New Days video, which I thought was fantastic. I think it's always helpful to see other companies' examples. And this is KeyBank's day in the life video.
When a client opens our doors, their world comes with them. It might not show, but they're carrying the weight of it. How much does that weigh on them? It depends. The challenges come in all sizes. A flat tire on the way to work, a change in career, a sick child, an unexpected expense. Sometimes they're dealing with a passing storm, like a remodeling project that's way over budget, or dreaming about starting a small business, but not knowing where to begin. Sometimes it's more serious, like struggling to start a family, caring for an elderly parent, or losing a spouse, and their world will never be the same. You might not know what today's challenge is, and they might not share it, but what you can always do is be the sun that shines in their world that day. You might be the touch of warmth and kindness they really needed, or maybe even the sliver of light that breaks through the dark clouds. Every day and every interaction is an opportunity to help put people on a path to a better, more prosperous life. We can help someone buy their first home, pay for college 3 times over, take a much-needed vacation, plan for retirement, or even help reassure parents that their child is on the right financial path. Multiply that across enough households and businesses, and it can jumpstart entire communities. So every time a client reaches out to us, whether it's in person, on the phone, or in a chat, let's make them happy they did. Listen to their story. Picture what life in their world is like, and make every moment matter.
Thank you. I can't help but wonder how many of you in this room have stepped foot in your bank, in a branch from your bank in the last 6 months? How many? Yeah. You can see the challenge that we're facing, and again, the importance of making every moment matter. So we had our experience action statement. And of course, those of you that know the DiJulius model, that is the what, but we needed our pillars, the how. And so in this workshop, we came out with our 3 pillars, and they are head, heart, and hero. Head, well, we know that we're in a banking business. People expect us to be accurate, reliable, be able to be knowledgeable about whatever brings them in the door, and do it right. But we want to go above and beyond, right? Understand what else is going on in that family's life. Ask some more questions. Be curious. Heart, well, again, remember, we're dealing with an emotional topic, and our clients are not going to open up to us unless there is an underlying foundation of trust. And the best way to do that on every interaction is by making that emotional connection, making sure that our clients understand that we are fully present and that we care for them. And by the way, you'll notice that we didn't use the word heart. We chose the red heart emoji. There was a lot of debate and discussion. There was some folks in the room that were advocating proudly for love. Well, others were saying, come on, we're bankers. Really? Can we show love to our clients? So heart came forward, but we said we want to have some fun with it. We want to make sure that there's more energy and action behind it, thus the red emoji. And then hero. Hero is about understanding that in the course of a day, maybe not every client, but in the course of a day, there's an opportunity to hear things, to recognize things, that allows us to go above and beyond. Just last week was a great example. We had one of our tellers processing a transaction for a client in the drive-thru. And as she was taking care of this client, she recognized that the client was multitasking. She decided to try to scarf down her lunch while she was doing her banking in the drive-thru. That's why she went through the drive-thru, came in the branch. By the way, does that resonate with any of us? That busyness factor that Dave was just talking about? But this teller had the presence of mind to, when she sent that tube back, client's identification, her money, her receipt, and a Kit Kat bar. And she said, I noticed that you were multitasking or enjoying lunch while you're doing your banking. Here's a little dessert to go with your lunch. That woman was so impressed, and it made such a big impression that she went home and posted on Facebook, advocating for everybody in her community to bank with Key Bank. That's what we're talking about. Small things, done well, done consistently, turn into big things. All right, so we move now to implementation, our rollout. We decided to roll it out across the country in waves. We certified our facilitators. They were all Key Bank employees, something that I would largely advocate for. And we encouraged them to have some fun, a lot of engagement, a lot of high-energy events. And wouldn't you know it, in one of our first sessions, the facilitators had an idea that they wanted to videotape the participants, the teammates, shouting out our experience action statement as they were doing the wave. So they caught this on video, shared it with the next group of facilitators, and once you know it went viral across the facilitator community. And we ended up doing this in every one of our rollouts. So we have a quick little video to show that captures some of the highlights of our rollout phase.
This is your moment. This is your moment in time. This is your moment. This is your moment to shine, to shine, to shine. This is your moment. Just to win, it's where your life begins.
We had a lot of fun with that. And by the way, you saw that the title of that was Moments Matter. Moments Matter is how we refer to our experience revolution internally at Key. So how are we doing? It's a fair question, right? You've heard we've been at this for a while now. We've rolled it out. What are we seeing from a results standpoint? Well, I'm pleased to share with you that both our client survey scores and our net promoter scores have trended in not only the right direction, but have shown material improvement in both the branch network as well as our contact center. Now, by no means are we declaring victory. We have a long way to go. That enemy is still with us. But I'm so proud of the momentum that we have, and I'm also pleased to report that the enemy is receiving less and less oxygen every single day. Key learnings. For those of you that are contemplating how to start or how to re-engage or reignite your own experience journey. One is, again, be intentional of the folks that you include early. We ended up launching it with our branch teammates and contact centers before we brought our support partners in place. That was a best practice. We felt like they were going to have the biggest impact with our clients. Think about incorporating your version of Moments Matter into the entire employee life cycle. We have Moments Matter now infused everything from recruiting to onboarding to training to coaching to performance management to rewards and recognition, our service anniversaries. It's everywhere. Our communication. Be thoughtful about telling stories. Gather those stories and share them broadly. We start every meeting in the retail bank with a Moments Matter story. Every meeting. It's an opportunity for us before we get into the business at hand to just take a moment and remember why we're doing what we do every day. And these stories, there's a lot of positive ones, but we also encourage our teammates to bring forward the stories where we're failing. We're still not there. That enemy is there. It's all in the spirit of learning and getting better every day. And last, think about ways to keep it, you heard John talk about yesterday, TOMA, top of mind awareness. You have to keep it going. It can't just be about the rollout. So we have infused Moments Matter into everything from posters in our break rooms to Credo cards that every teammate has, to gamification. We'll roll out just a game around, hey, remember our nevers and always, and see how fast people can compete against each other. We had our 1-year service anniversary, and the team here just did a fantastic job. Victor, by the way, in particular, this Victor, not that Victor, did a fantastic job of leading that effort for us. Yeah, so screensavers. Like, there's so many ways that you can be thinking about. I really encourage you to always be thinking a quarter ahead, 6 months ahead. What do we need to do to keep top of mind awareness for all of your teammates and your employees? So, what I'd end you with is 2 things. First, if you feel that you don't truly have a relationship with your bank, we would encourage you to put our Moments Matter experience to the test. Visit any one of our KeyBank branches, call our contact center, visit us at key.com, and put us to the test. Each of you are receiving your own red emoji squeeze ball in just a few minutes. Hey, Victor, there's yours. Oh. You know, I want to close with the fact that when John ended our workshop, he showed us a video, and it's a pretty popular video. I'm sure some of you have seen it. It's a video about followership and persistence. The video shows a grassy hillside on a warm summer day. And the hillside is full of people sitting, relaxing, taking in the sun, and listening to music. Now, the music comes from off screen. You can't tell if you think it's a band playing. Can't tell for sure. All you see are these people sitting. But among those people sitting is one person. He's standing. Not only is he standing, he is dancing. Now, he's just not doing the type of dancing that I do, like, this. This is me dancing, by the way. My girls roll their eyes every time I start dancing. This guy, no, he is out wildly enjoying the music, feeling it with every fiber of his body, and he is determined to just continue to dance, no matter the fact that everybody around him is sitting. And as a viewer, as we're watching it, I have to admit, I felt a little awkward. I even felt a little embarrassed for this guy. But wouldn't you know it, he continues to dance. And within a few minutes, something really amazing happens. Another person got up and started dancing with him. And then two more came over. And then a whole other group ran over. And before you know it, within 2 minutes, the entire hillside is up dancing on their feet. That has been our experience at KeyBank. That will likely be your experience as you launch your experience revolution. It might be lonely at first. It might feel awkward for a while as you're the only one dancing. But believe me, stay with it. Focus on your true north, your experience action statement, and just keep dancing. Because I'll tell you, our experience is we have a wonderful dance party going on at KeyBank. We invite you to join us. Thank you very much. Come with me. Oh, look, dance party.
Don't leave before your standing ovation.
How about that? Yeah.
So I just have a really quick announcement before I let Kevin go. Every year at the Customer Service Revolution, some of you may know this already, we have an organization of the year, right? We celebrate an organization that has gone out there and really done so many things to affect their culture, their customers. And I shared with you before, I am a customer myself. I get to see what they do every time I walk into my local branch. I get to see it and feel it, and it's such a great honor to be a part of it. So, KeyBank, you are our 2023 Client of the Year.
Hey, how about that?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you on behalf of the whole team.
Victor, get up here.
Oh, my God. I know how Franco feels.
Victor, stop recording and start celebrating.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about that?
Victor was already introduced by Shep earlier with his participation in Shep's
Congrats.
presentation.
Look at that.
But Victor and Kevin, working together with a lot of folks at these tables in the front, have done so much work to get Key where they are today. And obviously, by the body of work that Kevin shared, a well-deserved honor for 2023. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
You are welcome. So one note that I want to share about Key, which I think is amazing, Kevin touched on this a little bit. Year to date, since they have started this process, they have certified over 9,500 employees on this process. That's amazing. That's amazing. talks about the systems they put in place and the discipline they have to follow those systems. So well done, KeyBank. I'm proud to be part of your consulting team and more proud to be a customer of yours. So, two things I want to share about the employee experience, just to get you out of here on break. One thing I want you to think about, two of my favorite quotes when it comes to employee experience. The first one is really not even credited to anybody because it's been a title of a book, it's been a title of some chapters in a book, but I love this quote. Somebody somewhere said it originally, being a leader does not require a title. Having the title does not make you a leader. It doesn't magically happen, something that we all have to remember. Last quote, one of my favorites from Sir Richard Branson when he said, train your people well enough so they can leave, but then treat them well enough that they don't want to. Such a great way to sum up the employee experience. Okay, it is time for our morning connection break. You have until 11:25 to be back in your seats because we have more great presentations coming your way before lunch.